Well, it's that time of the year. It's holiday season, good tidings and cheers. And here on Stay in the Water, we like to bring you our good news series. Today, we have with us someone that I admire, someone that I look up to, and someone that gave me my start, and a living legend here in the Hampton Roads area. It's with Barbara Hamm of Another View. It's Stay in the Water. I'm your host, Eric Claville. We'll be right back in just a moment. Welcome back. It's Stay in the Water. I'm your host, Eric Claville. Once again, we want to thank you for tuning in and supporting us as you always do as we broadcast from the campus of the Norfolk State University, home of the Spartan Nation, from none other than WNSB Hot 91, the soul of VA. Well, listen, it is nippy out there, so you know the holiday season is up on us. Listen, we hope that you're doing all your Christmas shopping and making sure that everything is all tidy and nice for when you get together and get with your family and friends. Well, listen, for those of you that listen to the show faithfully, you know that this time of the year, it is our good news series. You know, we deal with a lot of heavy things throughout the year, a lot of policy, a lot of politics, a lot of divisiveness. And this time of the year, from Thanksgiving all the way through the end of the year, I would like to bring to you movers and shakers that are doing things in the community for the good. And today I have with us none other than my good friend, my sister, someone who brought me on and even mentor and really showed me the ropes as it relates to radio and gave me my first start, but none other than a living legend in this area, Barbara Hamm of Another View. Barbara, welcome to Stay in the Water.
Thank you so much, Eric. I appreciate that. Although I don't know about that living legend thing. I'm trying not to feel like I'm too old, you know.
Oh, no.
But it is an honor to be a guest on your show for a change.
Isn't that crazy? Isn't that crazy?
Isn't that crazy? Isn't that crazy? Absolutely. Absolutely.
Now, listen, for those people that are listening, when she mentioned your show, we had a guest on my show here. You know, it goes back. Barbara gave me my very first start in radio. I was a guest in 2014 on a segment, and I had a great idea. So I invited Barbara to lunch, and I said, listen, I got an idea.
What if we?
That's right.
And now it is the award-winning Claville Report that is heard on my show, Another View, which is on 89.5 WHRV FM. And, you know, Eric, watching your progression and watching really the way that people respond to you and really look to you to explain what is going on in our world, in our country, making it make sense. Is such a blessing for us on Another View because our listeners truly love hearing what you have to say.
Well, you know, I say it all the time, you know, I'm truly blessed to be able to do what I love, you know, in a place where people receive it and I have the platform, and trust me, that does not, you know, just go over my head. I'm very humbled and grateful for the opportunity and just blessed, extremely blessed. So thank you so much again. From 2015, when I said I got an idea, we did what you call a gentleman's handshake, you know, a 6 show.
Yes, we did. And I remember that lunch very, very well, as a matter of fact. But for those who may not have heard what you do on my show, so we call it the Claville Report, and we really, the same thing you're doing on your show, we dive into the issues, particularly the political issues, the geopolitical issues that are happening in our world, and how it affects us, regular folk, on a daily basis. And that's the thing I think that people really appreciate, is how you can explain, you know, something that seems so esoteric at times, but has real consequences to the way that we're able to live our lives. So it's very, very important.
Well, listen, thank you so much again. Well, listen, this show is about Another View and Barbara Hamm. So, you know, enough about our relationship. It's a beautiful one, trust me. And I'm glad that people understand that, you know, none of us get here by ourselves. You know, we always have someone to help us up, and you are definitely one that not just pay it forward, but you always pay it back. And I am a part of that lineage of Barbara Hamm. So I appreciate that.
Well, you know, people helped me get through my career. I started in television news management way back when. We won't say how long ago, but it was a long time ago. But even as I progressed and my career started out, as I said, in management behind the scenes, and I spent the majority of my career doing that. and did not go on radio or television actually in front of the camera until 2009
Oh,
when
wow.
we started Another View. And Another View is it's my baby. That's what I call it. But we were given the charge, Lisa Godley and I. Well, actually, I hired Lisa to work on the show, but the general manager had just come in. His name is Bert Schmidt, and he said, I'm looking around. I'm looking at our TV air, Channel 15, and we have a significant African American community here in Hampton Roads, and we don't have any local programming that really addresses issues that that community is facing. So go create a show, which was like, yes. And so, Eric, we literally sent invitations to about 150 or so community leaders from all the way from northeastern North Carolina all the way through the Eastern Shore and all the rest of Hampton Roads in between, because that's the coverage area for WHRO TV. And we invited them to come to a lunch. And we invited about 100 or a little more, and about 60 people showed up. And they gave me 2 hours of their time. And we provided lunch, and we started talking about what kind of show should it be. And they came up with everything from The Amazing Race of Hampton Roads to, talk shows, et cetera. And then we started talking some reality, like, okay, here's the budget. And so they said, all right, no problem. You can do a talk show, but please promise us that every week you will talk about something positive happening in the Black community.
Wow.
And that was back in 2009 when we went on TV. We transitioned to radio in 2011, and we have kept that promise the entire time. So we're very, very proud of that fact.
Awesome. You talk about journalism. Journalism has taken a different turn now. You have social media journalism, and people think they're journalists, but they're not. But that's a discussion for another day. But how did you get involved before becoming award winning? Who was Barbara Hamm Lee, and why did you get involved in journalism?
Well, Barbara Hamm Lee went to Bennett College in Greensboro, North Carolina, and thought she was going to be a special education teacher because I'd worked summer jobs with kids, neurodiverse kids and so forth, and really enjoyed it. So I thought I would study that until I got to my junior year, first semester, and I walked into art for elementary ed students. And the instructor said, I want a 15-page term paper on bulletin boards. And I went screaming from the room. It's like, I can't even draw a stick figure. You have got to be kidding me. And so people kept telling me, with your personality and all, you should be doing PR or journalism or something, that's more forward-facing. So I had a cousin who worked at the NBC affiliate in my hometown of Baltimore. He helped me to obtain what we called at Bennett an externship, where we had to leave campus for a semester and go work in our chosen field. And I literally moved back home with my folks for that semester. I worked part-time at a theater selling tickets so that I have gas money to go back and forth. And I totally immersed myself in the newsroom at WBAL TV. And I learned how to produce. I learned the back end of what people see on TV. And I also learned from some stellar journalists about what it meant to be a true journalist, what it means to get, multiple sources, to fact check, and to do all of those things, and to also do creative writing. And I discovered that writing was something that I really, really enjoyed. So once I graduated from Bennett, I called them up and said, hey, I graduated, give me a job. And they said, we don't have anything open, but come in and take a writing test. So we'll have it on file should a position open up. Before I got home, they called to offer me a job because the production assistant walked in and quit right after my interview.
Wow.
And that's how I started in TV. And unusual for a lot of journalists, I started in the 20th largest market in the country, which is almost unheard of, but got lucky in doing that. And I actually learned to produce news broadcasts and From there, I went from that station over across the street to what was then the number one station in Baltimore, WJZ, and started my career from there. And I've worked at BET, I've worked for WJLA in Washington, I've worked for KYW TV in Philadelphia, and then I got a call one day, and the news director said, "I'm looking for someone to come in who can transition into my position after in a year, because I'm leaving in a year." And my goal was always to be a news director. The one thing that people didn't understand was that the real power in terms of how our stories are told are by the producers and the writers. The reporters are critical. Don't misunderstand. They go out and gather that news, but it's management that decides what stories are going to go on the air, how long they're going to be, how they're going to be presented. And it was always so important to me that my community in particular be portrayed in a true light. I'm not trying to sugarcoat. I understand we have issues within our community, but I also know that we also have a lot of strength in our community, and I wanted that to be shown. So an opportunity for me to become a news director was great. At that time, I was working at KYW TV in Philadelphia, which was the fourth largest market in the country. And the news director who called from WTKR here in Norfolk said, "I'd really love to bring you down, talk with you, see if you'd be interested in the job." And I said, "Norfolk, Virginia. I said, "Okay, I don't know a thing about Norfolk except that the Navy's there." And I'm going from the fourth largest market to the 40th largest market. So how much of a pay cut am I going to have to take if I do this? And he said, "Oh, don't worry. I've done my homework, and we're going to pay you 10% more than what you're currently making in Philadelphia." Well, it turned out that his due diligence was off about 25% in my favor. So it was a real bonus to come to Hampton Roads, which I loved, but I fell in love with this area. The people are great. The fact that you have 7 major cities in Hampton Roads that offer you everything from urban to suburban to rural, and everything in between is awesome. The restaurants are fantastic. It's just a good, solid place to work and to live. And so that's how I wound up in this area. Became news director, as he promised, a year later after I arrived here in 1993, and stayed with TKR until 2001, right after 9/11 happened. I decided that I was kind of burned out, and so I stepped back, and I actually got involved in nonprofit work. And I serve on several boards. And then the then police chief in Norfolk, Melvin High, became police chief in Prince George's County, Maryland. And he asked me to go with him to mend media relations between the Prince George's County Police Department and the Washington Post.
Oh, wow.
Because they literally could not be in the same room together, And so I went back to Maryland, and I worked that job for 3 years. When I left, everyone was playing nicely. And I happened to be on Interstate 495 one day, stuck in traffic, which was usual. And I got a call from WHRO. And they said, "We have a communications officer's position here. Would you be interested?" And I was like, "When?" Because I want to get out of this traffic and get back to some normalcy. So that's how I came back to Hampton Roads, and I've been here ever since.
Wow. Well, listen, I can attest. Hampton Roads is a place that grows on you.
It does.
It's a beautiful, beautiful part of the country. I think one of the best parts of the country, which is why, my family, myself, we chose to make this our home as well. Coming from our home state. And But the great thing about it is Hampton Roads receives you as well, Barbara. One thing about your show, it's people look for it every week. It's that time of the week that's okay. It's time for another view.
Yes, and that makes me feel so good because people come up to me all the time. First, it's so funny. Like if I'm in the grocery store or something, I'm talking to my husband, I'll say, "Can we grab such and such?" And they'll go, "Wait, I know that voice." It's like,
That's right.
Which always cracks me up, because it's like, oh, it's just me. But people have embraced the show. Eric, the surprising thing that a lot of people may not know is that even though on Another View, our mission, we discuss today's issues from an African American perspective, but my audience is majority non-African American. And what our allies tell me all the time, this is an opportunity for me to hear a conversation I normally wouldn't be privy to.
Wow.
And thank you for helping me to understand. And so to me, that's just everything. Because I think that we can do so much better as a country, as a nation, as a community, if we would just talk to each other. You can't, as Alvian said on the show yesterday, it's really, really hard to hate somebody when you're face to face.
That's right.
When you have to have a conversation. So that's what we try to do every week.
And the great thing about your show is that it is educational. Now, listen, we keep it real on there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, we do. We definitely keep it real.
Keep it real, but it's in a way that it educates, and as opposed to othering individuals. Yeah,
because our whole thing is about civility. Yeah. And as people will tell you, because they laugh sometimes, they say, "Oh, Barbie, you didn't really cut that person off." I will not. I will let you say what's on your mind, but I will not let you be rude. If we can't have a civil conversation, then you don't have a place on Another View.
Absolutely.
So, that's something that's very, very important to us.
It's Stay the Water. I'm your host, Eric Claville, and you're joining us for our Good News series. Today, we have with us none other than Hampton Roads living legend, Barbara Hamm Lee, award-winning journalist, television and radio host, and owner of Sharing Info, LLC. Barbara, we're going to talk about Sharing Info, LLC at the end, but before we go, Another View. Listen, you've been on the air over a decade, with Another View.
Yes, we're 14 years on the radio.
Yeah. 14 years radio, but also you started television as well. So,
right.
With that, I think there's got to be a couple of shows, maybe 3 that stand out to you over that course of that time. What stands out to you as far as a show that made one of the most memorable impacts? Well,
okay. We have been covering what has been happening in Edenton, North Carolina. Edenton, North Carolina is an idyllic, beautiful town within our listening area, and they have a Confederate statue that is right smack in the center of downtown, right at the water. You can't miss it. And not only is the statue there, but there are 3 huge Confederate flags that fly along with the American flag. And there have been a group of people, dedicated folks there, who have been trying for years to get the monument moved. And we did our very first out-of-state live broadcast from Edenton. And Eric, it was the first time in the 14-year history that we've been on the radio that we had to hire security in order to make sure that we were okay. And I will not forget that conversation.
Wow.
People were live in the audience. We did not exclude anyone from coming in, but we did have security there because emotions were high, sentiment was high, and as a matter of fact, the first year, we followed them for a couple of years now. The first year we were there live, we had security, so forth. It went well. Got some pushback, but it went well. And we don't have time in your segment right now to go through all the details. But the following year, we decided to invite the group to come to us, because we knew we would have more control over just people feeling safe.
Wow.
And that show stands out to me. And I am on their mailing list, and we just keep following the progress. And right now, they're still fighting. So that one stands out quite a bit to me. The other one that I really love, we do Another View on Health, which is with Dr. Keith Newby, who I know also has some programming on Hot 91.
Oh, yeah.
And
NSU grad.
Yeah, an NSU grad, absolutely. And we talk about health issues because, health and health issues and health impact is so critical for the Black community. And so we talk about those issues. Keith is talk about keeping it real. Chief will tell you, don't make excuses. If you're not supposed to have salt, don't have it. You know,
Right.
he will go. He goes there. And one of my most fun interviews that I did, there is a African American novelist out of the Middle Peninsula, and his name is S.A. Cosby, and he is phenomenal. He writes crime noir, and his books are just wonderful. And we had a great old conversation.
Wow.
So, and all of these shows, by the way, you can find at anotherviewradio.org. We archive and put the podcast up so that people can catch it. Because noon on Thursdays is kind of hard sometimes for people to listen live, but they follow it online. So I invite your listeners to do that too. And then, of course, the Claville Report, of course. We've talked about that. And then the Roundtable. Right, our Roundtable is a concept that started on TV, and it migrated to radio. The people have changed over the years. You've been on the Roundtable. Yesterday we had Alvian Lyons and Dawn Hester and Allison Moore on, and we were just talking about issues that are happening. And I asked them at the end of the show to just give us a word or two of encouragement. And Alvian said this, and I got to quote this. She said, my mantra going into 2025, she says, anything we're not changing, we're choosing.
Wow.
And we just stopped because it was like the impact of that. And when you really think about that statement, it's just so very, very powerful. So there are moments, and we love hearing it from our audience. People call in and they ask their questions. You know, I try to ask questions that I think the audience is thinking so that we can have a good conversation, and we go from there.
Now, look, you have very, very interesting shows. You have segments, like you said, you mentioned Roundtable, the Health Moment, Claville Report, and you cover topics that are really hard, but you bring it to the people so that they can understand it. But would it be in a call-in show? Because, listen, there's a whole setup, that you have in studio. Listen, for everybody that's listening, look, the setup that you can see, well, you don't see it, but, we're in the studio, but then behind the glass, you got engineers, you got the executive, you got the producer, executive, all this going on, managing calls and getting guests in. They're running late. I've ran late before.
Yes. Yes.
and I got that
look. Host try not to sweat it.
Right. And look, and I've got that death look when I walked through the door from Barbara, like, okay, we'll talk about this later, but get on air. So there's a whole thing. And listen, to make it all work, she's got an NSU alum that's back there with her as well.
Lisa Godley, who is an NSU alum, absolutely. My hair is very, very short. She says that she's just refusing to pour her hair out. But but the thing is, the one thing that guests a lot of times, and I know people on occasion have to be late or whatever, but we're live, and my nightmare is that somebody won't show up, and then I've got to cover a whole hour and talk about, and then all you have to listen to is me. That's not the purpose of the show. So it's just really good once everybody gets seated and gets into place and so forth. I try to have a little Zen moment before we start. Sometimes that's not possible, but we have a good time anyway. And I think the fact that the show is conversation, and our audience has the ability to call in and to talk to people, to talk to the guests, makes it even more engaging, because you're not only listening to what my questions are, but you actually have the opportunity to ask your own. Now, we do have a screener, and we have discovered that there are some people who may not be as friendly to Another View as we would like them to be, and they will do things like say, I want to talk about the blue sky. And when they get on the air, they change their tune. And you know what? We will allow that, as I said earlier, as long as they are civil, right, as long as they are respectful. I had a moment once where a gentleman called in and he said, the problem with the black community is that you all keep having illegitimate children. Now, I was a single parent, and he triggered me. And luckily, Alvian Lyons, who is phenomenal, she was on the show that day, and I just looked at her and she just picked it up and responded to him, and it gave me a chance to kind of get myself together and not be emotional on the air. So, what we do is real, and it's live, and it's live. You don't know what's gonna happen.
We don't know how these things happen, but
exactly. But you just roll with it. That's what you have to do. You just roll with it.
I like to say that we're walking in our purpose and our calling.
I know. I remember when I was a little girl, and my mother, used to come home from work, and I would hit her at the door, and I'm just blah 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 blah, just talking. And I told her when I received the humanitarian award from Virginia Center for Inclusive Communities, I told that story, and I said, what my mother didn't know was that she was preparing me for my job as a talk show host. Wow. So you never know where you're going to wind up, or the experiences that you have and how that gets you from point A to point B. But I just kind of try to incorporate all of it into having a genuine conversation with someone.
But, aside from being all that you are, to us and giving us everything that you have given us, Sharing Info LLC is a company that you created, and you wanted to take it in a different direction as far as from your radio and television. Tell us what Sharing Info LLC is.
So Sharing Info LLC is a communications consulting company, and what I do is I work with for-profits, nonprofits, government agencies, military, organizations that are struggling with how to communicate to the public. And so that could be anything from helping them write press releases all the way through developing, and more likely that's what I'm doing, but helping them to develop a full-scale communications plan. I specialize in crisis communications. So if there's an issue that the company may find themselves in or whatever, we talk about strategies to be honest, but also present the company in a good light. And I also do diversity, equity, inclusion, and justice training, but that looks like that part of my side of my business may be going dormant for a little bit. Mainly because of the climate that we're in right now. Not that I don't want to offer the services. I'm just not sure that the marketplace will be needing those services as they did when George Floyd passed, for example.
Well, everything comes back. So just because some people say we don't need it, that literally means we probably need it more so. Exactly. And so we may have to call it something else or whatever, but if people want to know how to communicate and how to be inclusive and how to make people feel as they belong, then, we can have a conversation. So thank you for asking about Sharing Info. Absolutely. It's another tool in your extensive toolkit of expertise. So what's next for Barbara Hamley?
Ooh, one day she's going to retire.
No, she can't do that.
I don't know. You know what? Well, first of all, I could do radio forever because I love it. As I know you do too. It's just such an intimate form of communication. Even though you're talking to our audience, averages 16 to 20,000 every Thursday, but because it's the mic and me and a person, it feels like I'm just having one-on-one conversations. So I really, really enjoy that. My husband and I have a 15-year-old granddaughter who just made the JV basketball team, and she's a starter. And so she's having a good time up in Baltimore, yes. And so watching her grow and mature is a lot of fun. We've been doing some traveling and, just kind of living life.
Well, listen, and continue to enjoy it. It is well deserved. But one thing we do know is that we treasure you in this community and beloved. So I'm going to give you your flowers while you yet still can smell them. Right now. Yes. And I truly appreciate that. Thank you, Eric. And I tell you, watching you grow and watching your success also, it just multiplies and makes me feel even better because I truly live the mantra of it is my responsibility to give back and to reach back and to bring someone up. I don't see it as competition. I see it as
all of us growing.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
And
Yeah.
kindred spirits, and we love you. Like I told you, you're my sister, and love you dearly, my big sister. And I tell my wife the same way. And listen,
Yep.
but before we end, I also like to give a shout out to my wife as we celebrate on tomorrow, 24 years.
Happy anniversary.
Thank you so
much.
much.
That's fantastic. Oh, you got me way beat. I was a really old bride.
Hey, listen, bride nonetheless. But listen, it's not about finding them. It's about keeping it together and growing. So you mentioned growing together, and that's what it's about.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
So once again,
absolutely.
Thank God for our relationship. Thank God for our connection. And just thank God that we're able to do what we do here in this beautiful area. And for all of those that are listening, thank you for tuning in to, once again, Stay in the Water, our good news series where we have none other than Barbara Hamley of Another View. You can hear her every Thursday at 89.5 FM or go to anotherviewradio.org. Until next time, be good, be great, God bless, and we'll see you next week.
Hi, I'm Carrie Washington, and you're listening to State of the Water with award-winning host Dr. Eric Clavel.